Let us spend some time to explore the buzzword, serverless in cloud computing and Amazon offering. Developers spend countless hours solving business problems with code. Then it's the ops team's turn to spend countless hours, first figuring out how to get the code that developers write up and running on whatever computers are available, and second making sure those computers operate smoothly. The second part truly is a never-ending task. Why not leave that part to someone else? A lot of innovation in IT over the past 2 decades. From virtual machines, cloud computing, containers, has been focused on making sure you don't have to think much about the underlying physical machine that your code runs on. Serverless computing is an increasingly popular paradigm that takes this desire to its logical conclusion. With serverless computing, you don't have to know anything about the hardware or OS your code runs on, as it's all taken care of for you by a service provider. Let me attempt to answer the obvious question: what is serverless? Serverless computing is an execution model for the cloud, in which a cloud provider dynamically allocates and then charges the user for only the compute resources and storage needed to execute a particular piece of code. Naturally, there are still servers involved, but their provisioning and maintenance are entirely taken care of by the provider. Chris Munns, Amazon's advocate for serverless, said at a 2017 conference that, from the perspective of the team writing and deploying the code, there's no service to manage or provision at all. This includes nothing that would be bare metal, nothing that's virtual, nothing that's a container, anything that involves you managing a host, patching a host, or dealing with anything on an operating system level, is not something you should have to do in the serverless world. As developer Mike Roberts explains, the term was once used for so-called back-end as a service scenarios, where a mobile app would connect to a back-end server hosted entirely in the cloud. But today when people talk about serverless computing, or a serverless architecture, they mean function as a service offerings, in which a customer writes code that only tackles business logic and uploads it to a provider. That provider takes care of all hardware provisioning, virtual machine and container management, and even tasks like multithreading that often are built into application code. Serverless functions are event-driven, meaning the code is invoked only when triggered by a request. The provider charges only for compute time used by that execution, rather than a flat monthly fee for maintaining a physical or virtual server. These functions can be connected together to create a processing pipeline, or they can serve as components of a larger application, interacting with other code running in containers or on conventional servers. Let me put it in a different way. Serverless, also known as serverless computing, is an execution model where the cloud provider, like AWS or Azure, is responsible for code execution, managing, provisioning, and maintaining servers to help developers deploy code in a continuous manner, with no friction involved. But what about servers? Isn't serverless really serverless? Well, not really. In practical terms, serverless means that you no longer need to pay for keeping up the servers that don't serve any requests at the moment. Maintain the servers, their uptime and resources. Ensure server security and regular server updates. Scale the servers up or down, based on usage. So, while the name is totally misleading, you don't really have to keep the servers in mind when developing, updating, or supporting your software and applications. And this means fewer distractions, faster development time, and a considerable saving on resources that are dynamically allocated to run the code. From a tech side of things, serverless handles stateless containers, in which your code is packed. It can be manipulated through different requests or events coming in from your clients. Example, a user pushes buy button. To ensure that a piece of code is properly executed, it should be sent to the cloud provider as a function. Serverless is the recent evolution of the cloud. Here's how serverless is described by Werner Wergels, store at Amazon. Before, your servers were like pets. If they became ill, you had to nurture them back to health. Then with cloud, they were cattle. You put them out to pasture and got yourself a new one. In serverless, there is no cattle, only your application. You don't even have to think about nurturing back to health or getting new ones, all the execution is taken care of. With serverless, you enjoy flexible scaling and automated high availability, but don't have to bear the burden of server management and idle capacity. We have lot of options with serverless architecture. Popular vendors include AWS Lambda, Azure Functions, and Google Cloud Functions. The modern age of serverless computing began with the launch of AWS Lambda, a platform based on Amazon's cloud service, in 2014. Microsoft followed suit with Azure Functions in 2016. Google Cloud Functions, which had been in beta since 2017, finally reached production status in July 2018. The three services have slightly different limitations, advantages, supported languages, and ways of doing things. Leading cloud provider, Amazon offers different services for running code, managing data, and integrating applications, all without managing servers. Serverless technologies feature automatic scaling, built-in high availability, and a pay-for-use billing model to increase agility and optimize costs. These technologies also eliminate infrastructure management tasks like capacity provisioning and patching, so you can focus on writing code that serves your customers. Serverless applications start with AWS Lambda, an event-driven compute service natively integrated with over 200 AWS services and software as a service (SaaS) applications. Popular serverless technologies include: for compute, we have AWS Lambda is an event-driven, pay-as-you-go compute service that lets you run code, without provisioning or managing servers. AWS Fargate is a serverless compute engine, that works with Amazon Elastic Container Service, ECS, and Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Service, EKS. For application integration, we have Amazon Event Bridge is a serverless event bus, that lets you build event-driven applications, at scale across AWS and existing systems. AWS Step Functions is a visual workflow orchestrator, that makes it easy to sequence multiple AWS services into business-critical applications. Amazon Simple Queue Service, SQS, is a message queuing service, enabling you to decouple and scale microservices, distributed systems, and serverless applications. Amazon Simple Notification Service, SNS, is a fully managed messaging service, for both application-to-application, A2A, and application-to-person, A2P, communication. Amazon API Gateway is a fully managed service, that makes it easy to create and publish APIs at any scale. AWS AppSync is a fully managed service, that accelerates application development with scalable GraphQL APIs. For data store, we have Amazon Simple Storage Service RS3 is an object storage service designed to store and protect any amount of data. Amazon DynamoDB is a key-value and document database service, delivering single-digit millisecond performance at any scale. Amazon RDS Proxy is a managed database proxy for Amazon Relational Database Service, that makes applications more scalable and secure. Amazon Aurora Serverless is a MySQL and PostgreSQL compatible relational database that automatically scales capacity based on your application's needs.